Okay, it's 7:02 on my clock. Do you all mind if we start?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Welcome to the May 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Symmes Township Board of Zoning Appeals. This is an online meeting via Zoom software, and we would like to start out by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and all attendants are welcome to join with the board. Thank
Where
you.
did I get my flag?
And Luann is the one responsible for saying we all have to stand up. And
I said they did stand up.
yeah, I
There's
told
the
you.
flag.
There's the flag. All right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to
flag
the flag
of the United
United
States
States
of
of America,
America,
and
to the
the
republic
republic
for
which it stands,
one
one
nation
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty.
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Well, it wasn't quite the belt buckle. Will the clerk, Luann, please call the roll
Mr. Fowler,
here?
Ms. Harlow,
Here.
Mr. Havel,
Here,
Mr. Horvath, Mr. Wolf.
Here.
Okay, we have 4 members present. That is a quorum. We are required to have 3 as a quorum. And whenever we do not have a full complement, I think it's our tradition to allow the applicant to defer to a later meeting, knowing that no matter how many board members attend, you must have 3 affirmative votes. So it's maybe easier to get 3 out of 5 affirmative votes, or 3 out of 4 is not too bad, but 3 out of 3 can be a little tough, and we've had people defer before. So if the applicant would like, you can ask for that deferral to the next meeting.
We'd like to continue to proceed, please.
Super. This meeting is being recorded, by the way, for the public record and is subject to media and public access, so everybody's encouraged to be on their best behavior. We as a board are appointed by the township's publicly elected trustees and supported by the township staff, including Luann Felter, who's acting as our clerk, and Brian Snyder, Hamilton County's Development Services Administrator. Brian, you are here, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You're just not one on the roll call. That's why I was asking.
Nope.
Okay. Before we get to the case, each of us has received the agenda. The question for the board is, are there any adjustments to the agenda, or the clerk? Do you have any adjustments?
I don't.
Okay, I hear none. So if there are no objections, the agenda is approved as corrected unanimously, I take it, unless somebody objects. And the first case tonight, or the only case tonight, is case number 2021-02, Atlantic Sign Company, for the proposed Thornton gas station at 12156 Montgomery Road. It's our practice to turn this over at this time to Brian Snyder, who represents the board in the township's decision to reject the application, to explain why that application was rejected in accordance with the terms of our township ordinance. Then we will allow the applicant to make their case before us. Brian, it's all yours.
Okay, just to clarify, rejected meaning the initial zone certificate application was denied so that you could appeal to get to this board. Mr. Chairman, I believe that we do swear in myself and then the witnesses before we get started with.
Okay. For everyone here, will you in your testimony to this board speak truthfully and without any intent to mislead this board or the public?
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I will share my screen and we'll get started. This is case 2021-2. This is a request for a variance for signage at the corner of Montgomery and Fields Erdel Road. The property you can see is not exactly outlined in red. There are several parcels part of this request, but this is the overall property here. Majority of the property is zoned E-retail. A small portion is zoned double E planned retail, and I'll get into that in a second. The proposal is to tear this building down and build a new Thornton's gas station on the corner. They are meeting all the requirements of the zoning resolution for the building, the parking, the design of the parking lot, the aisles, parking spaces, all of that. They did go through the zoning commission for a final development plan modification for this small portion of the property that is zoned double E planned retail. Since planned districts are the jurisdiction of the zoning commission, not the Board of Zoning Appeals, they are not asking for any modifications to any zoning standards in this area, and the zoning commission granted their modifications to allow a portion of their parking lot to extend into this lot. We do, as I stated, have application for a building with a canopy. I believe you guys have the application in your packet. I apologize, I don't have a graphic to show of the actual gas station property, but there would be a building here and a canopy here. And so the gas station would be built with the applicant proposing to put signage on the front of the building where it would be facing towards Montgomery Road, on the corner of the canopy facing towards Fields Erdel Road, both of which are permitted by the zoning resolution. Because this is a corner lot, they're permitted to have signage on two facades of the building. The proposed sizes of both of those signs meet the zoning resolution. The back of the building, which would be in this general location, is also proposed to have a building sign, and that building sign is not permitted by the zoning resolution. So it would be a third side of the building and or canopy that would be proposed to have signage. That's the subject of the building signage part of the variance request. They're proposing a fairly small sign, 17 square feet. The sign that would be on the front facade would be 46. The sign on the canopy would be 43 square feet. So they're asking for a total size of 106.2 square feet, including the 17 square foot sign on the rear of the building. Staff did look at the zoning resolution, what it allows for. A front facade of 100 feet long, they would be permitted to have a 150 square foot sign on the front of the gas station building. And they would also be permitted to have a 48.75 square foot sign on the second side of the building or on the second side of the canopy. As I stated, they're under those requirements. So the total signage that they're requesting with the variance for the 17 square foot sign on the back of the building, they would be at 106.2 square feet, where 198.75 square feet is permitted. So what they're asking for, including all three signs, is far less than what the zoning code would allow on just the two facades that face Fields Erdel and Montgomery Road. Staff did have concern for other similar requests for building signage because there's a lot of outlots and large retail plazas in this area of Symmes Township. So this could potentially set a precedent for other outlots to want signage facing towards the interior of the shopping center. There are some other examples where that exact variance has been granted, though. There's a building right down the street, and I forget the name of the Japanese steakhouse. I think it's Yakura or something along those lines, just right down Montgomery Road from here, where they have signage facing the interior of the plaza and also signage facing out towards Montgomery Road. So that is the building signage variance. There are two other variances that they're asking for. They are proposing a 50 square foot sign, approximately 50 square foot sign, which is permitted, freestanding sign, which is permitted by the zoning resolution. However, they'd like to make it 20 feet tall instead of 10 feet tall like the zoning resolution allows. And they're also requesting to have it be a pole sign rather than a monument sign. Symmes Township zoning resolution allows for 10 foot tall, 50 square foot monument signs only. So they would need a variance to have a pole sign instead of a monument sign, and also to have a 20 foot tall sign instead of a 10 foot tall sign. Staff looked at this as well. Obviously, the precedent is a concern. There are other pole signs in this vicinity. There are also other monument signs in the vicinity that meet the requirements of the zoning code. It appears that the majority of the signs that meet the zoning code are newer signs, and the other pole sign examples in the area are older signs that probably predate Symmes Township's adoption of local zoning. So it does appear that the corridor is transitioning to smaller monument style signs and away from the taller pole signs that previously were allowed. Because there are other pole signs, this wouldn't be necessarily out of character with this area. So it's up to the board to decide whether or not that's appropriate. And then the final variance that they're requesting is for 6 square foot directional signs instead of 4 square foot directional signs. I'm not sure that they meant to ask for this variance or not. This seems, it seems like it'd be very simple for them to reduce the directional signs to 4 square feet. They don't have building logos. They're not asking for any variances to the height. These are enter and exit signs, and the code allows for 4 square feet, and they're asking for 6 square feet. So that is the nature of the request. I do have pictures that were in the staff report. They don't really show us much because they're proposing to tear this building down and build a new gas station. So you have these in your staff report as well. As I stated, this building would be torn down and replaced by a new gas station. So at this point, if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. For the record also, this is a practical difficulties variance, not a use variance, and the standards for practical difficulties variances are on page 3 of your staff report, pages 3 and 4 of your staff report. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question about parking. Where you have that Zone E retail. You wanna-
Okay, sorry, let's go back to that.
Let's go back to your screen,
No problem.
please.
Yes.
There's, I don't know, about 50 parking spaces, let's say, whatever, that's on the, I want to say, the right-hand side of that red line.
Yeah. They're proposing keeping all of those. There's an agreement with the owner of the plaza that's selling them the lot to keep those. And they're not asking for any variances to parking or parking design or parking stalls.
Okay, so they are keeping that, because I was afraid it would interrupt the number of parking for the rest of the shopping center quantity.
Nope, it has no impact on the rest of the shopping center.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, can you hear
Yes.
me? Okay. I sent you a note last week. Maybe you didn't see it, but what I wanted to understand was on this whole notion of 3-sided signs. We had Donato's a little bit further down the road south of this location, and we denied them a second sign for their facing the Montgomery for people traveling from the north to the south. Okay.
Yes.
How does that factor into this request?
Well, so I did receive your email. I did not respond, as I wanted to give the response to the email in the public setting of the public hearing. That denial was a denial of this board of a similar request, an additional facade where signage wasn't permitted. Donato's asked for that variance and it was denied. There are examples in the vicinity where the board in the past has approved additional signs, additional facades for building signs. The most recent 2 is the chicken place, Slim Chickens, I think, and McDonald's up when they redid their building on Field Turtle Road. Both received variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals for additional facade signage. So there are some that where it was granted, and there are some where it was denied. Each case, if you ask an attorney, each case is allowed to be considered on its merits by the board. Precedent is a concern, that stems from potential lawsuits. You're treating them differently than somebody else down the street. So in this case, you've got somebody down the street where a sign was denied. You've got somebody down the other street where the sign was approved. I don't know that there's a clear direction, but this board at this time is permitted to set the direction that they want for signage based on the factors that are in the staff report and any other irrelevant facts that you want to bring to the table.
Just refresh my memory, because I don't recall the McDonald's or the Slim Pickens cases coming to the BZA. Was this 5 years ago, or because it hasn't been in the last 2 years?
Let me see. I actually had that up just for this question. So Slim Chickens was in 2017,
Okay.
and McDonald's was also in 2017.
Okay.
There are some examples from longer ago, like Boston Market in 2001 was granted additional building signage. White Castles was granted something, but it's not clear. I think it was a temporary sign.
Okay. All right. Because I just didn't recall. Those were before my time. That's why I didn't recall those previous ones. Okay.
Those two were in 2017. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just let me interrupt for just a second to say that the person who was just speaking is Jack Horvath, our 5th board member.
Sorry.
And I just want the applicant to be aware of that, and that we now have a full board attendance here of 5 board members. And I just want to make sure, Jack, that you heard all of Brian's presentation so that you haven't missed anything relevant.
I think I did. I read the reports. I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I presented from the report.
Yeah. And this is probably a good time, although I should have done this earlier. Does anybody have a reason to think they should be recused from this case by having some kind of a personal interest or prejudice? Not having heard any, I'm going to assume that everybody's fine and we're going to go ahead and proceed unless an applicant has an objection to one of the board members. All right.
Objections.
I think it's net, pardon?
I have
No objection, sir.
Okay.
I like a little clarification from Brian. I'm not totally understand the facade signs.
Okay.
You say there's 198 square feet permitted, and they're at 106. So one of those facing facades, has a sign that's not permitted, and that's the part I didn't get.
The sign that would be facing towards, I guess, the south. Obviously there's 4 sides to the building. One of them faces Montgomery, one of them faces Fields Erdel, and they're asking for one on I think it's the southeast facing facade. We'll use the building that's already there as an example. Not that that's the building it's going to stay, but it would be this facade of the proposed building.
Okay.
So they're allowed to have signs on these 2 facades, and they could choose whether they want them to be on the building or the canopy, but not both. So they chose to put one sign on the front of the building instead of the canopy, and then they chose to put one sign on kind of the corner of the canopy instead of this side of the building. So they've got one sign facing Fields Erdel, one sign facing Montgomery. Those are both permitted and lower than what's allowed to be on that facade. And they're also asking for the 3rd sign. That's the subject of the building signage variance that would be on this facade, the southeastern facade.
I understand. Thank you.
I could bring up that site plan if that would help with the signage note on there, just for everyone's reference.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's got a copy of the packet that you submitted,
Okay. All right.
a paper copy in front of them.
So are we ready for the applicant to state their position?
Yes, sir, I am. My name's Todd Smoots. I'm the project manager with Thornton's. I wanted to point out that this is a fairly modest signage package in the grand scheme of things, much less than we normally do. We typically try to put channel letters on 3 sides of our auto canopy. Because of the unique configuration of that auto canopy, we thought it would be best to put one set of channel letters facing the intersection since it's at an angle. Understand that's not strictly allowed by the signage code, and that would be complementing the front channel letters on our building there. So that would be a variance that we would need as well. But however, like Mr. Snyder said, the entire sum of the signage for our site is about half of what we're allowed by code. We will have a rear entry on this facility with some rear parking. We've been working with Mr. Snyder regarding site plan comments, and taken his feedback into account as we've resubmitted to the county. And we will have that rear entry where pedestrians and also patrons of the center will be able to enter. And we feel it's best to put the signage over the entrance to cue our customers to where the entry is. Understanding that it's allowed for the frontage facing Fields Erdel Road, I think this is a fairly minor ask that we're allowed to show signage to the city street, and we're moving it to a position that's actually less visible to the public, but really better for our own operations so that there's no confusion as to where the entrance is on the front and the rear of the building. We do have some facilities that don't have rear entries. We have service doors on some of the backs of our buildings. So they vary from location to location. So this would be a little bit unique in that we have a rear entry for a convenience store. Also, based on the competitive nature of the area and the geometric configuration of this intersection, not being really a square intersection, I'm requesting the 20-foot tall pole sign so that we can be in better competition with the United Dairy Farmers facility across from us as a similar sign. And also owing to the increased visibility, being able to see it twice the distance. Really, it's no higher than the fuel canopy will be anyhow. We have a clearance at 14.6 under the canopy, and the fascia panels are 4 feet tall, so it's about 18.5 feet to the top of the fuel canopy anyway, so we're asking for another 1.5 feet for our sign. So as you look at the corner, you would see that pole sign just a little bit above the top of the fuel canopy there. Because of the ability to readily identify a gas station, based on the fuel canopy and see the brand displayed upon there, we feel the need to have our brand displayed higher, and particularly in an intersection like this. It's a little bit abnormal. Also, owing to our access here off of Montgomery Road, we have a right end that's currently existing that we're going to expand with permission of ODOT, and they've given us approval for that, pending the review of the road plans. And because of the configuration of the site and the shared parking that we have with Mr. Teppe's strip center here, and having to avoid traffic exiting onto Montgomery Road, we want the directional signs to be a little bit larger than normal. Just looking at the max visibility of 3-inch letters, it's 150 feet, and frankly, my eyes aren't that good. And the best viewing distance is about 40 feet for those. So if we do the slightly larger directional signs, it allows people that might be proceeding northbound along the side of our building and along that shared parking that was pointed out previously to be able to see that they can't exit onto Montgomery Road, so they don't have to flip around and go all the way around the parking and try to go back out Fields Erdel there. So that's the reason for the increased size of the sign, because the text is so small with the icons added in there that it's only 3 inches high, and it's difficult to read unless you're right on top of it. So I believe that covers all the requested variances. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have one quick question. Where on the site plan would you locate that drawing, the pole sign? I just didn't see it readily as I was flipping through all this.
Sir, it's on the corner, and it's faced at a 45-degree angle. It's next to the note L and A. Between those two notes there, it's that little red rectangle like on the site plan there.
And that could just as easily be the location of a monument sign serving the same purpose?
It could, but it would not be as visible. So going down Fields Erdel Road, turn lane queuing is rather long. It actually is supposed to be a little bit longer, but we're not able to accommodate it due to the road configuration. But because of the turn lane length and having to get in a position to the turn lane far before you get to the intersection, we want that sign to be high enough so that it's visible. Montgomery Road as you come in as well, so that people are able to get over the turn lanes to make that turn. So that's the reason for the increased height there of that sign.
And 10 feet for a monument's not enough?
Well, it's with a normal intersection, it would be based on the width of this intersection. It's 6 and 8 lanes, and it's a rather oblique angle. You'd be viewing the monument sign all the way across the intersection. It's not going to be as readily visible, as a traditional oriented site, that's on a squared intersection.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I do, Byron. Okay, what is the value added of all the icons on those small signs? Why couldn't you just put very big letters and maybe an arrow and that's it? It seems like you're trying to squeeze an awful lot of stuff that maybe is not value added on these little directional signs.
I don't have a problem with that, frankly. We can take the little car icons off and the little hash circle off, and I think the arrows certainly help, but that would help maximize the size. Yeah,
and right. Okay, good. Second question is so on the signage, what you're going to have is you want signage above the two entrances. There's one in the front, and there's one in the back, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I could see that because people coming from west to east on Fields Erdel, people coming east to west on Fields Erdel, people coming north and south on Montgomery would see the sign above the door entrance, which is it's good. I like that. I don't see the value on the northeast side. I mean, that's facing, I don't know what's over there. There's nothing there. It's on an angle and it's facing. So my question is could you just look at putting the two signs above the doors, maybe even increasing the size a little bit as long as you're within the standard, and forget the side on the northeast side because there's no traffic coming toward it. It's only passing by on Fields Erdel, and they've already seen it as they're coming east to west on the back side of your store above your door entrance. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but just to point out for your attention, like the building will be somewhat obscured by the fuel canopy, at a point. So that canopy on the corner with the lettering on the angled face there, it's meant to be able to draw attention to our brand, when you're parked at the corner, but the top of that fuel canopy is blocking where the letters would be on the building. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but why do that? But you have Thornton's on the canopy, right?
Well, that's the one we're asking for the exception for, sir, because we're allowed to have it on the front of the building, but we're not allowed to have it on the fuel canopy.
Okay, well then let's back it up here. Just bear with me then, because maybe I'm missed something. So you want one on the fuel canopy, which makes perfect sense, just like Shell has theirs. Okay. Your second sign is where?
The second one would be at the front entry, like over the front door.
But would be blocked from normal view in cars because of the canopy, which says Thornton's.
Sometimes, like if you're close enough, you could see the entry sign underneath the canopy, but if you're further away, the canopy will block it.
Where's the third sign?
The third sign's on the back of the building at the second entry.
Okay, so there's nothing on the northeast side of the building.
That's right. There's nothing on the northeast side of the building.
Okay.
Right.
That's the one that we're allowed to have, but we want to move it to the back of the building.
Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense.
Let me clarify that. We gave a fairly liberal interpretation of the canopy facades, which may be part of the confusion because there's a canopy facade that runs parallel with Montgomery and one that runs parallel with Fields Erdel, mostly parallel with Fields Erdel. And at the edge, it's kind of rounded off. So it doesn't meet at a square like this building does. They've cut the corner off the canopy to meet the setback, I believe, from the building or from the road. So that's the facade where one of the signs is going. And we consider that to be facing Fields Erdel Road because Fields Erdel curves around the side. So they're allowed to have, and they can choose whether they want it to be on the canopy or on the building, but they can't have both. So they are permitted to have a sign on the facade facing Montgomery Road. They chose to put that sign on the building. And they're allowed to have a sign facing towards Fields Erdel Road, and they chose to put that on the angled part of the gas canopy. They're not proposing any signs on the gas canopy facing Montgomery Road, and they're not proposing any signs on the facade of the building facing towards Fields Erdel. So they're not moving a permitted sign to a different location. They've got signs on the two facades that are allowed to have signage. This would be a third facade where the variance for the 17 square foot building sign is requested on the back, the southeast side of the building. That is a facade where no signage is permitted, and it's not being moved from somewhere else. It's just being added. They'd have signage on 3 facades instead of 2. So just to clarify.
Okay. Well, while you're at it, Brian, with that same graphic, would you point out where the pylon is proposed to go?
Sure. Right here.
Okay.
Where is it? Do it
Right
again.
at the corner. So they're going to have a parking lot. They're going to move it back and meet the streetscape requirements from Montgomery Road. And it's going to be a driveway that goes around, or a portion of the parking lot that goes around the canopy to provide access around the canopy. And where this driveway comes down and this driveway comes down, there's a little corner that's cut out, and the sign would be there. And it's shown on your site plan in that location. If you look right next to the parking lot in this corner, in this general area, that's where the proposed freestanding sign is.
And the proposal about that is that it be a 20-foot pylon sign rather than a 10-foot monument.
Correct.
Back to the applicant. Or any questions for the applicant? Jennifer.
Okay, I actually still have a question for Brian Snyder about what you just said there with the pole sign. My understanding was that a 10-foot tall pole sign would be allowed.
No,
Under
10-foot monument sign is what the zoning
Okay.
resolution allows. So
Okay.
the
So
signage
not the
doesn't
pole,
meet
but the
height or
monument.
the type.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, would they be permitted a sign on that canopy to the front as well as the side?
If they took the sign off the building and put it on the canopy, yes. You're allowed to have signs on 2 facades, one facing Montgomery and one facing Fields Erdel, but you're not allowed to have one on both the canopy and the building. You have to choose.
That thing's 18 foot in the air. That ought to be, overshadow even the pole sign.
Well, there are examples in the township where gas stations have complied with the code, and you can see the sign below the canopy because it's shorter than the canopy.
Can you give me a couple of those examples?
Maybe not this UDF across the street from here, but there is a UDF down in on Loveland, Madeira, I think, or in the Twitwy area. Not Twitwy, Remington, the Remington area, where they've got that kind of sign at the corner of that big intersection. Where they meet the code requirements and they've got their gas station canopy set back a little bit.
Yep.
Just to ask a quick question, and I should know the answer to this. That UDF across the street from Thornton's is taller than the current code allows. So they have that, and then we have a 20-foot that matches. So it gives them that equal visibility from all angles coming towards the gas station.
What they have is a non-conforming sign.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. It's from it's an older sign.
Right.
Correct. Right. Okay.
But what that means right now is if they ever need to replace that sign, they have to meet the code. Whereas if you're granted a variance for your sign, you're allowed to keep your sign forever.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to go now to asking anyone in the audience if they would like to speak in support of this application. Talking about someone besides the applicant. And if everybody is named Brookolini, I guess there's no one else. Okay, so, and then that would mean there's no one opposed? Unless Jeff Tepe. On whose side are you?
I believe he's the
Yeah,
owner of the
hello.
shopping. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I was really wanting to view this, but of course I'm the property owner representing the property owner. So I will support Thornton's and you know what they're looking to do is they're paying a pretty good price for the property and their build.
Okay.
But I guess the only thing I saw recently within the last year or so was the At Home across the street from us. I believe they were granted a variance in their signage. I do think they have a sign on the back of their building. I believe. I have not verified it, but I believe that if I remember properly.
Brian, would you confirm, isn't that in Deerfield Township? And
Yeah, the facade, the back facade is in Deerfield Township. That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. So it's irrelevant then.
Okay.
At Home, that's where Sam's Club used to be.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
That is in Symmes Township, and that did go through the Symmes Township Zoning Commission.
Okay, so that is in Symmes. I thought it was.
They have 3 street frontages. Cornell, Montgomery, and Fields Erdel. They're allowed a very large, like 600 square feet of building signage. And they went to the zoning commission to get one on a facade where they weren't permitted, facing towards the back, I think. I don't recall. I didn't look into those because that was a different commission.
Yeah, I believe it's on the back as well.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say before we go into deliberation of the board? All right. We ask the audience to be patient and just listen while the board deliberates unless we ask you for a question, or unless we ask you for a question. Ask you a question. Ladies first.
What?
Deliberation. How do you
All
feel
right.
about these issues?
Deliberation. I am not a fan of the 20-foot tall pole to start with. I think that should be a monument sign. I think we've been pretty consistent with that over at least the past 2 years. I know McDonald's and Slim Chickens I was part of that. My memory is that had to do with they were by the interstate. There was a certain distance from the interstate and they could have different signage or length or something like that. But I could be mistaken about that, and I hope somebody will correct me.
No, that's correct. They did not ask for signage variances for their freestanding signs. Those variances were for building signs.
Okay. And my other thought was that we've been consistently saying no to electronic signs. We've talked about the light along the Montgomery Road corridor with the like the church having the electronic sign, and then Donato's wanting to put a sign where they weren't supposed to, and all of those fun things. So I am struggling a little bit with the third sign for, I'm calling it the backside of what would be the building. It kind of faces the furniture fair, if I'm understanding this correctly. Is that sign would face the furniture fair area direction wise. So I could be persuaded on that. Probably not the pole sign. I'm probably pretty far against the pole sign, and that we seem to be consistent with our monument signs.
Jack, you had specific comments about the directional signs. Do you want to express a view?
Yeah. My position on this one is it's got to be a monument sign. We're not putting in any more pole signs. Number 2, clean up the little directional signs and keep them at the requirement of 4 feet. I am sympathetic, though, to the backside sign, because as I look at the plot plan, they really have they've got an issue because of the angle of Fields Erdel. So one sign is facing west, one sign is facing northwest to kind of catch the Montgomery. And I think the back sign, a small back sign catching directional from east of Fields Erdel going west, I could be amenable to that variation, but not the other two.
You're
I think there's
amenable,
ways around
you're
it.
amenable to, let me be clear. You're amenable to the variation for the third sign that they are asking for
Yes,
as asked. Okay.
yes, on the back side.
Okay.
So
Ralph, how do you feel?
wait, let
Oh,
me,
go- Did I cut you
Brian,
off?
make sure I'm
Sorry.
saying this correctly.
Yeah.
Brian, so there's a front sign that faces west, there's a sign that faces northwest on the canopy, and then there's one that would be facing east on the back side of the building.
Yes,
That's what they're asking for.
I believe yes.
Okay, I could be persuaded to agree to that, but not the monument. I want the monument sign and I want the other signs to be in compliance. Okay.
Ralph, anything you'd like to say?
Yes. The one on the back side of the building, I am for, because you're coming up east going west, basically on Fields Erdel. That's going to denote you're going to see Thornton's, saying, okay, here's where I go into Thornton's. And going east, you're going to see the one on the canopy. And you'll also see the Thornton sign, but it should be a monument sign, not a pole sign, because that's the direction we're going further down the road. And you'll actually see the monument sign in both directions. So I think you'll see it'll be better for the monument signs. As for the directional signs, I'm not the designer of them, but the monument signs, I think, and the real Brook, you may be able to answer this question. I think it's it's a signage rule that you have to have the international logos basically on there for do not enter and exit and so on, and arrows. You can't just.
I'm not sure if that's a rule. I think that it's a good idea because you're right. Not everybody's going to know exactly what it says, but I don't know if it's a rule. I don't know if it's like a law. I can look.
It may be an international rule, but to get rid of those logos, I think that's a mistake. Telling them that just put letters up there, because people will pick that up before they pick up the wording. They'll see that quicker too.
So let me summarize, Ralph. Jack doesn't like the variance for the directional signs. He would prefer the graphics be removed and that they comply with the code for that. You're in favor of allowing the variance for that so it can have those graphics.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second.
Well,
Byron.
the variance
Okay.
isn't related to the graphics. I mean, the variance is just the size.
It's about the size.
It's the size.
They can keep the
Yeah.
graphics if they want.
Yeah, I understand.
Reduce
It's
the
about
size.
Smaller, but I think the graphic should be there from the standpoint of people seeing it and visually. They're not reading, they're seeing the sign, they're seeing the logos. Basically, do not enter, it's a circle with the line through. You get rid of that and say no exit, people have to be right on top of it before they actually read it.
Yeah. To be clear, the question there is about the size, not what's on the signs.
Right.
Correct.
And that the question is therefore to the applicant whether or not they can have what they want on the sign and
Right.
live with the rule.
Yeah, and I don't mind making them a little bit bigger. I think
Okay.
personally, I mean, I think they have them all in the wrong locations, but that's not my call.
Right.
My call is for that variance of them.
Okay.
Uh,
Darcy, your thoughts?
I kind of agree with Ralph about the small signs, and I don't think we've really answered the question: is if we make them the 4 instead of 6, can we still get the symbols on there? And again, that's a question that I think the applicant needs to answer. And I have no objection to the small sign above the doorway, which is on the back side. And I certainly think that certainly in favor of the monument versus the pole sign. And my question is why not put the Thorntons on the front of the canopy, because it's just as high as what the pole sign would be and certainly is visible. And on the building, the canopy is going to obliterate part of the facade sign. So to me, I'm certainly in favor of the monument sign, and they can choose what they want to do from there.
Okay. I'm going to go back and give everyone a chance to follow up with anything they wanted to ask. But first, I'd like to ask Luann, is it okay if we ask the applicant about their directional signs and whether they can have both the graphics and the wording on a sign that fits the rule? Is there any reason we can't ask the applicant for that input?
No.
Because we are in deliberation. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
So the question for the applicant is, if you must comply with the code for the directional signs, is your plan, you had to anticipate you may have to comply with the code, is your plan to have both the wording and the graphics, or is it too crowded and you'd only have one or the other?
I think necessarily we'd have to do one or the other, because right now the smaller text is 2.5 inches. So if it gets any smaller than that, you're going to have to be right on top of it to read it. You know, it's the best reading distance for 3-inch text is 40 feet. So it would be pretty tiny, and you'd have to, be 25 feet away from it to read it legibly. And so we'd have to choose one or the other if we were going to go with the 4 square foot allowed by code.
Okay.
The signs that are there now that we're asking for, the letters are like little over 4 inches, and that's 150. Like you could be 150 feet away from the sign to be able to read the 4-inch letters, to kind of give you an idea of when you're driving.
Right.
You have to be still pretty close to it. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I add something to this really quickly?
Okay.
I don't recall a variance granted by the board for any other business in Symmes Township for the directional signs.
Yeah.
I didn't see one on any of the other variances in the Montgomery or Fields Terminal corridor. And in fact, the county has the same 4 square foot requirement for all the jurisdictions that are under county commissioner jurisdiction. And I don't recall a variance for any of those either. The only time I can recall is when we're dealing with like a campus, an office campus that has different businesses in different locations where they want to put Dr. So-and-so's to the right and whatever office is to the left. But on a straight up gas station, I can't remember a time in any of the jurisdictions I deal with where this variance request was granted.
Yeah, I think it's up to the applicant. I think it's up to the applicant, given the requirements, to figure out what is the best combination of either words or symbols. That's not our job to figure that out for them. We tell them it's 4 square feet. You make it the best so that it's most useful to your customers, and we leave it go at that. I don't think we need to get into the design elements of it. We let the applicant do that.
Right. Okay. Remembering we're still on board deliberation and it's not primarily a dialogue with the applicant or even with the staff. The question is, does any board member wish to state something after they've heard the other board members' comments?
No.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I have 2 things. I think one of the things that where my reluctance is with this third sign is that past that shopping center, it all becomes residential. There's no more commercial back there. It's apartment buildings and then housing. So I think a lot of those people coming that direction are going to pick up very quickly that that's a Thornton's gas station on the corner. Some of them may be very excited for it. I'm not sure. But that is all residential back there. And as far as the sign, if it's 4 square feet throughout the county, And we've not granted other variances. I don't see a purpose in granting the variance this time.
Okay. Any other comments? Are we ready to vote?
Who's going to make the proposal?
Well, I'm going to make the proposal and see if there's any support for it. I'd like to take each one of them individually. Is that possible, Brian?
It's better if you don't. I'm not sure that there's a consensus, but I would. One of the board members can make the motion that seemed the most likely to pass, and if it doesn't, and you decide that you do need to break it down, then you can go back and break it down after. But
Okay.
We can certainly make it 3-part.
All right.
Byron, let me take a cut at it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what we propose is we deny the pole sign and require the monument sign. We deny the 6-foot and require the standard of 4 foot. And we permit the small sign above the back door on the east side of the building. That would be
Okay.
one proposal.
I
Okay.
could support that.
So is that a motion and a second?
Oh, is that a motion, Jack?
Yeah, that's a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. So, Luann?
Yep. Ms. Harlow?
No.
My pen's dying here. Mr. Havel?
Yes.
Mr. Horvath?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes. Motion passes.
Well done, Byron. Well done.
That was a good job tonight, Byron.
Well, we're not quite done.
Well, you've done
I can
so
still
far.
do this. Okay, is there any old business that needs to be discussed? Does anybody have anything? Luann?
no, I don't.
We're waiting on the court case from, what's the name of that street? Timberlake?
Is that our treehouse?
Fireplace? No, fire.
No, isn't this the swimming pool one?
No, it's the fireplace in the front
Oh,
yard.
the fire.
Oh, that's what it is. Yes.
Judge to write his opinion.
Our favorite one.
Brian?
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Wasn't it last week that the hearing was?
Yeah.
Okay.
How'd it go?
I think we heard it's going to be dismissed, but we haven't heard officially from the judge.
When you say dismissed, that means
It's being dismissed on they can't do it.
Yeah, it means your denial is upheld.
okay. So they still have to move the fireplace,
Yes.
Yes.
which
the
may
court-
start to bring peace in the world over there in that neighborhood.
Maybe. But it's nice that the court is backing us up as a board. So
Yes. Yes.
Is there any new business?
Brian, do you know if we have any cases next month?
I don't think we do.
Okay. Jennifer, you're all set then.
All right.
yay.
Are there,
Do not have anything.
Have we dismissed the
Right here.
applicant?
Yes, like yesterday or the day before.
they're
It's
watching. They
possible
they
that-
don't have to
I
leave
haven't
the
gotten one
public
yet.
hearing.
Oh, oh, that's right. Sorry. Thank you.
Appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I wasn't sure what you wanted to hear, but you're more than welcome to stay.
Administrative matters. Do we have minutes from the February meeting to approve?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any objections to or changes proposed for the minutes to the February 1st meeting?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Not hearing any objections, the motion for the minutes to be approved is approved. And that completes this meeting's agenda. If there is no objection, the meeting is adjourned.
Great.
Hearing none,
Very good.
we're done.
Brian, I do have a question for you though, Brian.
Who, me?
Pardon? Oh, you and Brian.
Okay.
A real quick question. Someone came up and approached me and wanted to know our rules on chicken coops.
Oh,
I
We
know
love 'em.
granted a chicken coop before.
Well, there's statute. There's Ohio
So
statute for that
the
among.
chicken coops were added to the
No.
code, I think, right, Luann?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were added.
So it's like a 20-foot setback or something like that from all the property
Something
lines.
like
And
that, yeah.
there's a whole bunch of rules on them. They're in our code, though. Anybody can look
Okay,
it
they
up
are.
online.
Okay, I wanted to make sure.
We did 2 cases back a couple years ago. Don't you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember we granted it, and I remember it was for a family that had a child that I think had a disability, and they were raising chickens. It was
I think they changed because we had a lot of requests, I think we changed the code.
right.
Yeah,
And that's what I
it's
wanted
been
to find out, because someone approached me and I said, I think it's in the code, and but when I know we granted it, and I didn't know what it was all, all of it. So
No
was
roosters.
a quantity, a number of chickens.
Yeah, there is. There's a square foot area, a number of chickens, no roosters, no killing chickens.
Okay.
There's a whole list of regulations in the code.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I directed them correctly.
Is that the no cockfighting rule?
No, we didn't actually put that in there. You're just not allowed to have a rooster, period.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that, Byron.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to adjourn this meeting before.
Go ahead.
8
Go
o'clock
ahead,
so I
Brian.
can claim,
I
I'm
just wanted to
claiming,
point that out.
I claim record time for completion of a meeting.
That's 1 hour. I'm pretty sure we've had a faster one. You got to try again next
We
month.
have.
All right.
We've
Well,
had like
I
a
know.
25-minute one, so the pressure's on. Let's see if we can
Okay.
beat that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Good night.
Like,
Good night.
Right.
Night.
Bye.
Night.